Do y'all agree that the number one fear that most federal employees have around retirement is running out of money? Here's the thing. What if I told you that I met with a client the other day? She had 57, she was 57 and had $2.7 million in her TSP. And her number one fear was, guess what? Running out of money. It doesn't matter how much money you have in your TSP. If you're not educated on what to do with that money, how long it's going to last, it doesn't matter if you're a hardworking person, a person with kids, without kids, a person that lives in a state where you pay taxes, a person that's very healthy, a person that's married. It doesn't matter from my experience what your situation is. Having the fear of running out of money is typically the number one thing that you face. And the reason being is just purely lack of education. And if you know anything about us at Fed Legacy, you know that our number one goal is to make sure that you retire on time and with confidence. And the reason why we always use the term on time and with confidence is because I've been doing this now 16 years, right? 17 actually. 17 years actually. I did the math the other day. 17 years. And in that time, I realized that, no matter who the person was, if you didn't have an education, you went into retirement stress or you worked longer than you needed to work. And again, going all the way back to education. So tonight, the thing that I'm going to talk a lot about is Social Security, right? And as you're listening to me talk about Social Security, I want you to just remember this is all about education, and our goal is to make sure that you retire on time and with confidence as we go through this. And don't take and one of the things that, when we're talking to clients and they always have this thing of, well, dang, I should have known this, or I waited too late, or things like that. Here's the thing about federal employees, and I could say this is pretty much a fact at this point, especially this year, because this year we've seen a lot of people who are ready to retire or forced into retirement without being as prepared as they would have been in years prior, just because of the whole DRP stuff, the VERA stuff, and just everything that's going on with slashing the federal workforce. And so you now have all these people who, and you may be one of those people who are just forced to retire out of nowhere. In most cases, with some minor tweaks, as a federal employee, you're going to be okay. Right, you're going to be okay as long as you've worked 10 plus years, have some decent savings. There's ways in which you can maneuver your retirement and do some budget planning and things like that to be okay. You just got to make sure you face those hard conversations. So open webinars like you're doing today, and book the calls that you need to have those one-on-one conversations where someone can help you think through your retirement and strategize. And the reason why that is because as a federal employee, you have those three pillars. You have the pillar of your pension. You have the pillar of your Social Security. You have the pillar of your TSP. And with those three pillars, you will be okay. And so today, what we're going to talk about is pillar number 2, which is Social Security. And so when it comes to Social Security, there's two main things two main decisions that you have to make when it comes to to Social Security. The first one is, do I take it at 62? Or do I take it at 62 and do I wait to 66 and 10 months, right? That's the big decision. The other decision that a lot of people make, and it's not really a decision, it's just an education piece, is if you retire at 57 or early and you're taking the first supplement, what does that mean for my Social Security journey, right? Those are the two biggest questions you're going to have as a federal employee. The other things that you're going to have, and I won't go too much into these, is when it comes to your spouse, right? If you're married and your spouse makes less in Social Security than you, then when they pass on, when you pass on, they're going to get the higher amount of Social Security. And the reason why I mentioned that is because, again, going back to the confidence thing, a lot of people go into retirement and they're afraid, but they don't know those certain things. Like, okay, maybe you don't have the life insurance you need to have, or maybe it's too late, or maybe you might not have the TSP balance that you would like to have, but you want to make sure your family is okay when you pass, your spouse in particular. then when you pass on, just know that they're going to be able to tap in. They're going to be able to have your Social Security as long as though they have some level of Social Security, which most people do, right? They have to at least qualify for Social Security, and then if they had qualified for Social Security, then they can take on yours. I was talking to a client the other day. His wife didn't work that much. She only had 400. She had $450. That's how much she was receiving monthly for Social Security. He, on the other hand, was receiving 3,100, well, projected, because he was getting ready to retire and he was getting ready to take it. And so they didn't know that, because even though she was getting that 450, if he was to pass, she would get that whole $3,100. Now she won't get the 450 anymore, but she will go from 3,100, I mean from $450 to 3,100 if he was to pass. On top of his survivor benefit with his first pension, and on top of the fact that she would be able to keep his TSP, right? And we talk all the time about the TSP and how to structure that, but the Social Security piece we don't talk much about, and so that was one thing that was important. And so you just want to know that when you're doing your planning, again, is all about having that confidence when you retire and making sure all your ducks in a row, and I like to say all your exit ramps are identified, so that if an emergency happens in retirement, you're not panicking trying to find the right exit. And then by doing that, you're wasting a whole lot of gas and, a lot of energy and things like that. You want to know, and we help you, and that's something that we do at Fed Legacy. We help you prepare those exit ramps and identify those exit ramps so that when emergency does hit, and most people deal with the same type of emergencies, whether it's a medical emergency with you or your spouse, that's a big one. Family emergency, whether something that goes on with your kids, premature, somebody passing away prematurely. Another one would be, unexpected debt. That's rare, but you see that come across, or where you have a lot of debt going into retirement and you're not quite sure how to manage it, but you don't want to work anymore. And so, those are the main things that affect you in retirement. So you just want to make sure when you have that, when those things do come up, you have a conversation with someone that helps you plan the strategy on how you deal with that, right? So today, again, we're talking about Social Security. So when it comes to your retirement, again, you have your pension, you have your Social Security, you have your TSP, right? And so one of the things that's always talked about is, Mrs. Smith, how do I plan for the proper age of when I take my Social Security? Now, this is a personal thing, but I will give you my stance. And again, don't take this as what you should do, right? Again, it's better to meet with somebody, have a one-on-one. I'm just going to give you what I see the majority of the time happen and what the majority of federal employees do, and reason why they do it. Okay. And again, whenever you watch the news and you're watching these retirement programs, a lot of times they're giving you generic advice that doesn't really pertain to the federal employee story, because the federal employee story is different because you get a pension. Most people don't get that pension. That pension is a huge differentiator between your retirement and theirs. So the question that comes up a lot is, Mr. Smith, should I take my Social Security at 62? Or should I wait to 65? Or should I wait to 66 and 10 months? Rarely do people want to wait to 70. But that's the three questions, right? And so by delaying your Social Security when you're already getting your pension, the question I ask everybody that I meet with, I say, because and this comes with a 10 of, well, Mr. Smith, if I delay it to 65, I'll have an extra $400 a month, for example, right? And this is an example of a real Social Security estimate for somebody. And I always say, right, well, if you don't have enough in your TSP, why would you force yourself to live below your means just to get an extra $400 a month, right? Because some people are comfortable with struggle. And this is something that at Fed Legacy, we talk a lot about. We're like, look, when you retire, we want you to live an amazing life. We want you to plan 3-4 vacations a year. We want you to plan on what you plan on doing with the generational wealth that you created for your family. We want to have bigger discussions. We're not trying to have discussions around, okay, well, I'll struggle for 2 years just so I can have a little bit more later on. No, if you plan properly, you realize there's a waste of time waiting from 62 to 65. just to get an extra $400 or $500 a month, right? Take your money now. Take your money now. If you need extra, go into your TSP, but take your money now, right? There's no point in delaying and going through that emotions of, well, I'm waiting and I'm trying to save. No, it does. The math just doesn't math when you do the calculations, right? Now, the reason why people do it in the private sector is because, again, as I talk about many times, in the private sector, they have they have one main stream of income, which is their 401k, and then they have their Social Security. And so because they have their 401k, how much they get out of that Social Security matters a ton to them. It matters a whole lot to them because that's all they have. And so when you see it on the news and people are working longer because they're trying to save up to get their Social Security higher, that's because that's all they have. You have a pension, and a pension eliminates that urgency, And so this is why the conversation with most federal employees is a very easy one. When we run it through our retirement analyzer system, it's very clear. It's no point in waiting, And so that's the answer to that one. And again, the reason why we do it is because when you go into retirement, on time and with confidence is the most important thing. Going into retirement should be a conversation around, all right, what can I do next? What are the opportunities that I can create with my family? I was talking to a client the other day, and literally we were mapping out the different things she can invest in with her family, talking about her nieces and nephews and their goals, and talking about how she wants to take them here and there. And this is what we need in this moment in time, right? As federal employees from my culture, most of you are, we don't know if we're going to be able to have jobs at this level, be able to create this amount of wealth again. And so the thing that we have to do is we have to learn how to keep more money and then grow more money so that we are no longer job takers in the future, but we're job makers. And so federal employees, you all have an opportunity to do that. And then again, that's the reason why I started Fed Legacy. I started Fed Legacy coming out of University of Maryland. I saw a lot of my counterparts in school coming from families with a lot of money, and I realized there was no difference between my folk and them. It was just it was an education around money. They came from a place where they were educated around money. They had conversations with their parents around money. They knew how to grow money. In my household, we weren't having those conversations. And so the difference between back in 2009 when I started Fed Legacy to now, and where I see our people financially is very, very different. Almost every week I'm talking to somebody that has $1 million in their TSP or 900,000 in their TSP, and it's just more and more and more and more and more. And so these conversations we're having is no longer, am I going to run out of money? It's like, no, you're not going to run out of money. Your money's going to continue to compound. What do we do next to grow the next generation so that our kids are no longer taking jobs, we're creating jobs, right? And so that's the conversation that we need to have. So one of the things we help you run through when we have our TSP finish line session is we show you a break-even process when it comes to your Social Security that we'll walk you through. That's more of an individual thing, but we'll walk you through that. And for those that just are hell-bent on definitely delaying Social Security, one of the easy things you could do is just use your TSP as a bridge. And this works really well if you have at least over 500,000 in your TSP. And let's say, you're 62 and you're like, you know what, I want to just wait to 66 in 10 months. That's just my thing. You can easily, by strategically, investing, take it out from your TSP. You still have to invest it in a certain way so that you're not having your income and your growth. We call it a protected bucket and a growth bucket. You want to make sure those two things are separate. Have your protected bucket paying you the difference to be that bridge to get your Social Security at 67. But it usually works when a person has over 500,000 in their TSP, right? And so, and the FERS supplement, for those that don't know, I just want to go over that real quick. The FERS supplement, if you're 57 and have 30 years of service, then you're eligible for what's called the FERS supplement. Okay. And what that is that's early Social Security. I like to call it the fast pass line, like at Disney, when you go to Disney and you could just walk past everybody, get to the front line. And so as federal employees, you have this special line to Social Security, which allows you at 57 to go to the front of the line and start collecting money at 57, where others have to wait to 62, right? And so the FERS supplement does it. Now, you don't get the whole Social Security. You get 75, around, averages out to around 75%, but it's still a tremendous advantage because you don't have to wait to 62 to receive it. You can also start to receive your Social Security, your FERS supplement, if you're 60 and you have 20 years of service as well. And so those are the real benefits of Social Security. I don't want to dig too deep into the weeds, you know, and for those that don't know how to pull the Social Security statement, you might be in your 50s, but it's still good to look and see your Social Security statement. What you want to do is you want to go to SSA.gov, and if you go to SSA.gov, it takes about 10 minutes. You go to SSA.gov, you register your account. You could do it through, I think it's called My ID or something. One of those things. You could just do My ID, and then you could just you download, you upload your information, you put in your information. They'll pull your Social Security report, and it doesn't matter what age you are. You can go in there and it'll show you what your Social Security is estimated to be at those milestone ages. But it's also a little bar at the bottom where you can customize the age. But by default, it'll show you 62, 65, 66 and 10 months, and 70.